Man, has 2020 been a year so far? So, we obviously have this giant issue that's been going on. The economy is shut down. Stock market has tanked a lot. Huge declines in the stock market. There is record high unemployment, bigger unemployment than even the Great Depression in the 1920s. And now we have this thing called murder hornets that somehow got released in America. Anyway, so yes, there is a lot of crap that has gone down in 2020. But you know what? I personally am optimistic for the future. I think there are great things ahead of us. And I think that because, you know what? It's a heck of a lot easier to be happy than it is to be sad. So I choose to be happy. I choose to be optimistic. And I do think we have very great things coming in the future. And it's awesome. It's going to be great. Life always seems to have a way of working itself out. So don't worry, be happy, and subscribe to the channel because why not, right? Anyways, getting back to the decline in the stock market, the record high unemployment, a lot of people have received their stimulus checks, and there is actually round 2 being proposed in the House with an up to $6,000 per household. If you want to learn more about that, I will put it right here up in the card so you can click on that, watch a video that I made on the proposal for the new stimulus checks. So I made a couple of videos on the first stimulus checks. I will put the links in the descriptions on those ones, but most likely you've received your stimulus checks. And now, what should you do with it? There's a lot of different things we could do with our stimulus checks. Like we could go and blow it, right? I mean, we could just say, hey, you know what? I'm going to go buy a motorcycle, which is probably what the government would like us to do, because when we go and buy a motorcycle or we go buy other things, yes, as you can tell, I kind of want a motorcycle. I don't know why, it's been on the mind a lot lately. Anyways, the government wants you to spend that money because that is what boosts the economy. If you spend that money, then somebody else makes money, and if they make money, they will most likely go and spend that money. And it's called this multiplier effect in economics. So my dollar can multiply to be many dollars when it is spent repeatedly because I spent it in the first place. So yeah, that is one option with the stimulus check. Another option is to invest it in the stock market or to pay down some extra debt that you have. There's a lot of different things, but a lot of people that I've heard honestly are just taking that stimulus check and saving it. So if you are curious on what to do with your stimulus check, or if you just want to know the best bank to put your stimulus check in for saving, you are in the right place. Continue watching. Watch this video all the way through. I'm going to go through banks and which ones are the best, which ones have the best interest rates, and hopefully help you maximize the savings on your stimulus check. All right, so the first thing I want to talk about is the fact that traditional brick and mortar banks, a lot of the high profile banks that we see, actually offer terrible interest rates on savings accounts. So as the Federal Reserve lowers interest rates, that eventually hits the mortgage market where they will lower interest rates as well. And a bank really is just kind of playing on the margin of interest rates. So for example, if they lend on a house at 3.5% interest, but then they are paying you to keep money in their savings account at 3.5, I mean, that margin would be like nothing, right? So they wouldn't make money. That's why they lend at 3.5%, and then they will let you have money in their savings account, and they will pay you an extremely small interest rate. And then they make their money because they are charging you higher interest to borrow from them than they are giving you when you leave money with them. So that's how banks make their money. So right now, interest rates are extremely low. And so the amount that you get on your savings account is going to be extremely low, especially if the bank is a traditional brick and mortar bank, because then they have all of these assets that they are going to have to pay on. So if they have a branch in every little town that they operate in, then yeah, they have to pay for that building, they have to pay for those employees, and their cost is extremely high, so they are going to pay you less. So with that being said, let's flip over to my computer. I am going to go to a couple of those major banks that I've talked about. Obviously there is a handful of them, so you can actually go in and see their interest rates, but I'm going to do that right now and show you. All right, so first we're going to check out Wells Fargo. So if we go into their personal and we break this down and go into their savings accounts and their CDs, it is going to pull up their rates. So we're going to click here and view all the rates for all of their savings accounts on Wells Fargo's website, as you can see. Now look, on Wells Fargo's Way to Save Savings, you are going to get 0.01% interest. That is so low. So that if you have $100, you are going to get 1 penny in interest in a year. That is insanely small. You're going to make hardly anything. Now, with this one, this Platinum Savings and Interest, you can get 0.05% interest, so 5 cents, yeah. And then you have CDs, which are certificates of deposit. Those usually have terms, so you cannot draw them out with any penalties. You're going to have penalties on it. And even with a 5-month interest rate, or 5-month term, you are getting 0.3%. So you are only going to get 30 cents every year for every $100 that you have in there. And then they have all these other CDs, so they range from a 3-month with 0.05% interest clear to 1 year with 0.15% interest. And then they have some of these other ones, but they have minimum deposits of $2,500, and they are still 2 years at a 0.1% interest. So very small interest rate, and that is for Wells Fargo. Next one I brought up is Chase Bank. So if we go to Chase and go to their savings accounts, then let's wait for this bad boy to load up. So you will have Chase Savings and Chase Premier Savings. Let's see where we can get down to their interest rates. Let's see their interest rates on a Chase Savings account. Maybe the computer's going a little bit slow. All right, here we go. Kicks up. It is 0.01%, so very similar to Wells Fargo. So let's go to Bank of America. If we go to Bank of America and go to savings, Bank of America's savings account, this is something that would be liquid. It wouldn't be set in like a certificate of deposit would be, that you couldn't withdraw it. And let's click on rates. If you have less than $2,500, that is 0.01%. So yes, again, it is so low. And then there's these tiers. Apparently you can qualify for them, but even the best tier, it's 0.06% interest in a year. I mean, that is little, which is funny. I don't know why they even put this on. Look, less than 2,500 and over 2,500, it's the exact same. It's still crappy rates. It's not that great. So these are traditional banks. These are the interest rates that you would be getting at some of the biggest banks in the world. Right there, Wells Fargo, Chase, and Bank of America. All right, as you just saw, the interest rates at those banks are pretty terrible. And nothing against those banks. Those banks are good. They're big organizations, but they're just not the best place to put your savings because you are making next to nothing on it, and there are better options out there. Those interest rates don't even come close to keeping up with inflation. So inflation is essentially the rise in cost of goods. Traditionally, inflation in the United States has floated anywhere between like 1.5% to up to 3%. Usually it's in that 2% range. That's kind of been the average over the last 10 years is 2%. So that means year over year, the cost of something will go up 2% because of inflation. And that's really why inflation is why soda doesn't cost a nickel like it did in the good old days. You can also think of it as if the Federal Reserve decides to print more money, then the money that you do have goes down in value. So if there's $100 and the Federal Reserve decides to print $2 more, well, now there's $102. So overall, that money is worth less than it was before. That $100 is worth less. And that's inflation. All our money, because of inflation, is worth less over time. And that's why you want the interest that you earn at a bank to do the best that it can to keep up with the inflation rate. So if I am making 0.01% in interest at a savings account at those traditional banks like I showed you, that's nowhere near keeping up with inflation. So my money sitting in that savings account is actually becoming less and less. It is worth less and less. I will not be able to buy the things that I can buy now with it at the same price. It is going to be worth less, which is a bummer. That's why let's try and find bank accounts that do its best to keep up with inflation and to make, hopefully, that right around that inflation mark. So yeah, you are losing money if you are saving money. Kind of sounds weird, right? But yes, it is true. If you are saving money with interest rates that are lower than inflation, you are actually losing money. And that's why I really just don't have that much in savings, to be honest, because it is not worth it. I have enough in savings to have an emergency fund just in case I can't go to work or in case I have a big emergency. I have enough to handle that. I have enough to handle, my 6-month savings, as Dave Ramsey would say, 6 months worth of expenses. I have that in emergency savings, but then everything else I have invested into investments that bring cash flow, because that's what I want. I want money to work for me to bring more money. I don't want money just sitting there and becoming worthless over time because of inflation. And at least for me, the thing that I love is my cash flow generating investments are real estate. And I actually have a video on Airbnb and how I run an Airbnb out of a studio apartment. I'm going to make more videos about other real estate things that I have that are cash flowing and make me money rather than just having my money sit and lose value over time. But the money I do have in savings, I do not waste my time with traditional banks. I put it somewhere where it is going to earn a higher interest rate so that I am at least doing the best that I can to mitigate the loss that comes with inflation, the loss in value. I want an interest rate that's going to keep up with that or do its best. And so I keep it in a high interest online savings account. And we're actually going to go over that now. So let's go back to the computer. Let's look at some of those online savings accounts that you can earn higher interest where you really should be putting your savings because it is going to do better than a traditional bank as far as interest rates. All right, so now to go into the online savings accounts that you can earn much higher interest, I have pulled 5 up. This is not an extensive list. There is more, so you can find stuff online. These are just 5 that I have either held accounts at or are very popular ones. So first there is Marcus by Goldman Sachs. So this is an online savings account. Like I said, no traditional banks, but look at this. Start saving 1.3%. So instead of making 0.01%, you would make 1.3%, which is a huge difference. You would get a lot more money off of that by keeping your savings in one of these accounts. So that is Marcus, and I believe I have an account with Marcus, and when I set up my account, there is no minimum deposit. You might have to break down into some of these accounts and find out if there is a minimum deposit. The one thing that you do want to know is with a lot of these accounts, there will be some lag. So if you are a person who is transferring in and out of your savings a lot, then just know that you're going to have some lag by transferring from Marcus into your checking account. If your checking account is at a regular bank, such as like a Wells Fargo or something like that, it's going to take a little bit of time. So take that into account if you do open up one of these accounts. But if you're just somebody that's going to put in an emergency savings and stick it in one of these accounts and let it sit there, then let it sit there at 1.3% instead of 0.01%. And I think that deserves a smashing of the like button. Anyways, okay, going on, there is Citizens Access, also similar to Marcus, 1.3%. There's an online savings by Barclays, and that also has 1.3%. Ally Bank has 1.25% on all balance tiers, so that is good. You can go in and open it up and get 1.25%. And then there is CIT Bank, and they have up to 1.3% in their online savings. So a huge difference. It is much, much better to put your money, if you are going to just sit on it, if there's an emergency savings account, put it in one of these. It is going to make you a lot more interest, and it'll at least help you keep up with inflation. Plus, we don't know exactly where inflation is going to land for 2020. There is so many conflicting reports. There are some saying we are going to have super high inflation because we are doing these giant stimulus packages. And then there's also people that are saying we are going to see disinflation, where we're essentially it's the opposite of inflation, so our money is actually going to become worth more. There's a lot of nuances with inflation, so the best that I can say is you are still better off going with these online savings accounts that are going to pay you a higher interest rate and not pay you 0.01%, which is so tiny. Because these online savings accounts also do not keep up with inflation, as I stated before, I do not leave a whole lot of my money in savings accounts because I don't think it's the best use of my money. I would rather have my money working for me, and that is why I invest in real estate. I invest in things that are going to generate cash flow because cash flow is king. Cash is king. So, yes, invest in something that is going to bring you cash, going to bring you a greater return than the rate of inflation. That is the best way to go. If you have made it this far, you are awesome. You watched the whole thing. You guys are great. Hit that thumbs up button. It helps the YouTube algorithm know that I provide useful information. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. We'll catch you guys next time.